So basically this, let me get this set up here. Yeah, yeah, I just wanted to do that because somebody was talking about flash closing. I want to take a peek. All right, so we need to, yeah, but it closes at the market. So it picks the worst price. So all you want to do is move your stop loss to where you need to be. So what I want to do here is, let's take a look at Solana while we're in here. And I want to kind of go over, um, so really it always comes down to entries, you know what I mean? Like the best entries are always the way it is. So it doesn't matter how everything's set up. So here, you should be watching the folders on position trades, right? So let's take a look here. All right. So first thing I want to do here in my position trade, right, is just take a look at my daily. And what I'm looking for here is eventually as the daily, comes down and gets red, or red moon or something like that. Those are the areas that I want to look for those pullbacks and then the runs, right? So that's kind of like the bonus. See, like here, red moon, pullback, and it just kept going. And finally, the volume gave out, gave us a nice dip. The green moon came in, and then we knew we were on an upward trend, right? So let's delete that. All right. Uh, so volume is going to be the main thing that we look at here. So like for instance, right here, there's a lot of guys that were shorting um, Solana earlier, right? And that's why that's why I'm in a short right there because I was going over the flash. I'm actually going to switch out of this because here we have a daily, we got a green trend here. This looks like we're going to run for a little bit. The 4 hours pushing the top. And a lot of times what they're looking for is that 4 hour pullback. But you see how the 2 hour bounce right there? Yeah, that's a big scenario where Solana is going to be more of in a long type position. All right, so let me get that set up. All right, so there we go. Yeah, because I was looking at the Discord and everybody was talking about Solana shorts in here and how they're closing out there. Um, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it all depends. I mean, so you can move your leverage around like where it fits the coin. The coins that have less, yeah, less money, you want to be very careful with, or also the move that's going to be made as far as that goes. All right, so let me see what we got here. All right, so let's get Solana worked over here. So first thing I want to do here is kind of look at position trading, right? So obviously, everything always comes down to our 4 hour. Just because it's at the top doesn't mean it's going to come down. Sometimes it could get pinned to the ceiling, and that's just based on the fact of the daily, right? So the daily's still pushing, and we just got a daily trend. So everything looks like we're moving in the upward position still. So now the things that I'm looking for are what you want to focus on are the moon volume lines, right? These are the price action lines, right? So those will give you a quicker view of what's happening, right? So you can see here, you see how it's bending right there? So that's an early awareness of where it's starting to go level. But the most important one is also the blue, which are the sellers, right? So this is where you'll find a point where you'll end up going sideways because even though the buyers are coming down and it's getting less price action, if no one's selling, right, or getting out of it, then it's going to consolidate. So it lets you know that you're in a good position because that yellow line can come down with the buyer's line can come down, touch the blue, and then go on a run, right? Or the blue could start to bend up here, meaning that there's way more pressure here than we thought, and then go on a bigger run. Okay, so these are the lines you really want to focus on. So think of these as your RSI lines, but with volume. These are combined. Yeah, these are the buyers right now pushing money into here, and these are the sellers. Nobody's really closing their positions here. So everyone's holding their position right now, right? So eventually, if that position starts to increase, right, we should be seeing it. You see how we're starting to get volume here? And it's all lining up with the RSI too. So the RSI just basically lets you know that it's an insight to what the sellers are doing or the sentiment of the whole trade, meaning that the sentiment could be when it starts to come down, meaning that okay, people are calming down on buying this right now, and it needs time to what we call cool off. You know what I mean? Which means it could go sideways for a while, right? So now we can see here. Yeah. Yeah. So to me, it's a very simple process, right? There is no short here unless there's a 3 minute red moon, red trend. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not going to do any shorting in this spot here until there's a 3 minute red moon, red trend. So right now, that's why I swapped real quick, and I was like, when I actually looked at it, we went long. You see, very easy to get into the long position here, and this is where we're going to increase that a little bit there. All right, so now that I know, on the overall, right, which is our daily pushing up, daily greens, look in this. But what we need to get better at is like sometimes when we get into a trade and realizing that a trade is already kind of like happened, we want to wait for some type of ending of the trade and then the next push, right? So for instance, where we're at right now, you see how we're in a push here? What we really wanted to do is on this push, we needed, before we entered this trade, we needed some type of pullback, right? Which happens here. You see on this first leg, it pushes up and we have a buy signal on the 2 hour, right? So these are the videos that'll be coming out for the advanced people that are like, kind of like getting through the program. So, but part of the thing that we're running right now is real simple, right? So this is a buy signal on our 2 hour, right? Locked in. We would get in at this price here, and then we're running a 20 to 30% profit margin here, and then we're just running it up until we get a definite, sell signal, which would be something in the 1 hour red moon, right? So we should actually been in here at 24.24, and we should be long this entire time. Okay. Now, the difference is let's say we come around and we weren't tracking this particular coin, and then we come across and we see there's a buy signal, but it already was pushing up, right? And the decision is right in here, right? So let's say 2 hour comes in, buy signals in, everything's going, we see it, and the 2 hour is at the top, right? Our goal would be to allow the 2 hour to show some type of breathing, right? Meaning even if it takes a couple hours, because we could have saw this here at 9 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, and we would have had to wait all the way until 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon to where we finally see 5 p.m. in the afternoon. We see the 2 hour finally giving up. You can see right here on the yellow. You see how it bends down right there. Now, when that bend happens, right, we put all you would do here is put an alert on your RSI, right click, add an alert. It's a crossing and you want once per bar. And then all you want to do here is just get rid of all this other stuff here and go just like that and click. And what that's going to tell you is that when this 2 hour RSI crosses, right, which is, all the systems run together, right? So when the 2 hour RSI crosses, remember that's the start of the A trades, right? You want the 4 hour to cross for the I mean C trades, right? That's the beginning of the C trade, right? So that's kind of where pullbacks come from. C trades have pullbacks. They're not the greatest pullbacks, but they're just basically that the coin has to fill all the gaps, and the money has to, all the orders have to get leveled out, right? So when we see a pump that's already happening, we have to be patient enough to then set our 2 hour RSI alert, because where we want to get in is when the 2 hour RSI crosses right here. You see, we would have got alerted here. We want to get in when it crosses, and then when it crosses back, you see right there, then we would be re-entering. Yeah, the red and the blue. Yeah, the red and the blue. Right. So the blue is normally my green line. I just don't have it set up that way, but in the color wise, it's just style. I always change my blue to green just because I like to see green. Um, so yeah. So here, what we have to be patient is we have to start realizing that once there's a pump happening, right, unless you can evaluate it overall, a lot of times you want to wait for that 2 hour to cross over, and then we'd be re-entering when it starts to cross back up here. And this is how you can get the heads up, is that you see the orange line here? See how it bends down and then it starts to head up? That's where we would be buying in right here. So we would have been buying in again at 25.06, 25.17. Now, and that's all because it depends on when you catch this buy signal and where the 2-hour RSI is, right? Because you could start buying in once you see the 2-hour and the RSI is still moving up here. You just want to be in a position where your cost average buying, right? So for instance, you have $100 trade that you want to do. So you put in 50 and you let it run its course. And then once it runs its course, you take profits when it starts to cross, right? And you take profits on the way back. And then when it recrosses, then you start putting in the rest of your bag, right? And you compound it into the next move because you're going to hold that move in there. You know what I'm saying? So that's a system that we're going to kind of like show. But a lot of times it's just that once we get to the level where the 2 hours already up there and it's pushing hard, a lot of times it's better just to sit back and let it cross over. If it's down here, on its way up, you can enter that trade. You just want a cost average buy. You can enter that trade because there's got to be a pullback somewhere that's going to happen. And these where entries are a little more, a little more tricky, but you just want to make sure that if you see the 2-hour buy, 2-hour moon, and the RSI is moving up, you want to make sure that you're getting in, at least watching the 15-minute RSI. And what I would do here is I would let the 15-minute RSI come down, and then when that comes down, then I would be buying into the 15-minute RSI bounces. You see what I'm saying? That's what you want to do there. Now, if you get to this point and you see that the 2 hour is already at the top and you're like, damn, I missed this, then you want to go ahead and make sure you wait. Like anytime the 2 hours goes sideways or hits the top, you just want to wait for it to basically cross over and then reset and get yourself into this position, right? And this also goes for guys who are in a trade. If you catch this trade in the beginning, once the 2-hour RSI gets to the top and you see where there's a spike where you see how it's to the top here, and all of a sudden you get this big spike, I would close out 75% of my position on this spike, and then I would allow the 2 hour to finish its move, and then when it crosses down and crosses back up, I would put in that 75% back in here at this position, right? So I would close out somewhere around 25.60, and I'd be buying this dip in here around 24.75 when it starts to head back up, and I would reposition myself, and then I go back on the next run, right? So you can see here, there's always a breathing through the steps, right? Same thing here, 2 hour gets back up top. We can see here it's crossing again. I'm taking profits. This time I let it go all the way down, and you never know what this down is going to do. You don't know how much this down will be, right? This one is strong, so it holds pretty steady for you. It bounces right here on the orange. You can see the orange bounce and see how it starts to head up. I would re-enter here. Now, this is also where you could be re-entering as someone who missed the original entry and you didn't get this little bounce, but you'd be like, okay, this is the re-entry on this orange, on this push up, on the 2 hour reset right here. See? Now you're running this entire push here. And at this point, you got to the top, you'd be selling on that cross, and now you'd be waiting for it to recross, which just happened, which puts us where we're at the trade that we're looking at now. Now, the one thing about the trades is, I like to always look at a trade as far as like two strong legs, two big pushes, and then kind of it needs to, at that point, somewhat, have some type of reset here. So that's just kind of like if you're looking at these 2 hours playing the longer position. All right, so let's slide over to the 1 hour to see like what we have. Now, the biggest thing about the 1 hour is this is the one that we want to kind of like make sure that we're trading with, right? So if you get a big push in the 1 hour, see here, here was our big push right here. That 1 hour turned up, and now we have the 1 hour last hoorah, and it's starting to pull down here, right? We always want to trade with the 1 hour. So when that 1 hour went flat here, started to come down, we'd be out of this trade, and you would look to get back in here, look pretty solid, but there was this basically all that happened here is when it went for the next push, the guys who didn't sell here took profits here because they got scared because they're inexperienced traders and they thought that there wasn't going to be a continued push. So basically what's happening in Solana right now is Solana is going through a bunch of traders that made profits and they're just, deciding to try to shell off their profits here a little bit um, before it continues on, right? So this is why looking at we trade off the bigger time frames, but we operate on the larger time frames, right? So so the bigger time frame is the daily, the 2 hour, and the 1 hour is what we're looking for to trade with, right? So once this 1 hour gets back down where it's supposed to be and starts to go back on its run, right, then we'll be basically pushing up. So this right here, the buyers and the sellers are still here. The buyers are here. They're not getting enough volume here because people are starting to hit there's some sellers here that see normally what happens, you see this big peak here, right? So guys who missed that when it came back down, they will set their sell orders on that next peak right here, you see? And when this peak got there, they started to sell there, and that's why we've seen that decrease for no reason, right? So it's just slowing down this push right here. But for us, trading with the 1 hour, if you're ever behind or you're in a trade, take your trade with your 1 hour. It starts to come down, just allow it to finish its movement. And then when it finishes, we'd be re-entering and getting more money put into this area here when it starts to bounce. But overall, this still looks like we're pushing to the upside. Like I said, the one thing that we're looking for is volume, right? So volume is king. And we go here, we can see, I mean, just off the 1 hour, you can see your volume is tremendously high here. So when we go to our 30-minute, you can see our 30 minutes pushing up here. So everything is still on an upward trend. You have a red moon here, but it didn't have any effect really on the pull down, right? So everything looks like we're still going to recover here and start to push up here. So let me slide over here real quick. I need to increase. And that's why cost average buying into your position is always good, because that way you have extra money when it starts to move a little bit different for you. And you can take advantage of those pullbacks that aren't really there. So every coin acts a little bit different. And as a safety, I'm always putting 25% in there and 200 in case it spikes. Okay. All right. So overall, as a long position, the one thing about being when we're playing long position trades or day trading, we're always in a comfortable position because we're not closing unless there's a closing signal, right? And that just it's not there yet, right? That's a 3-minute red trend, 3-minute red moon, right? And that's just not there. So we still look good here. This just looks like when you get this additional sellers here, the ones who didn't sell here panicked and sold here, right? So this is what's called, you see that double top right there? Normally that double top would be when this trade was over, but it's still got a shitload of value. It's just these are panic traders here they panicked here. They saw that it was dipping, they thought it was a short. So when it pumped, they tried to short it again, but then the price action here you can see is picking up here. The volume is picking up. So they're just well, all that's going to happen is they're sold here, and then they're going to realize that they made a bad sell, and then when this starts to move up, they're going to rebuy here like idiots, and then it'll push and then dump on them. But that's kind of like what happens. So you have to kind of pick your system where you have to pick what you're getting into, and then it's just that's your position. You know what I mean? So on this here, I want to just kind of cover for your MEXC, right? So for you, it's all about buying in and out of MEXC, right? So easiest thing to do for you is um, once you get into your trade thing, you go up here, um, find your futures tradings, get yourself to where you're actually in futures trading like this. And then it's very easy to use. The one thing we want to be is on open, right? And then I use limit because I want the price to be the price that I put it and not market, right? First thing, isolated, right? So we move our percentages. Currently, I'm running off a 31x leverage. So always make sure that's set up. And that's pretty much the basis right there. Now the only thing difference is, let's say I'm going long here and the price is 29.50 and you hit last here, right? It gives you the current price. You always want to make sure that you kind of like up it a little bit. So I'm going to go 29.60 because when I go to place my order, I don't want this jumping on me and going past the price that I'm trying to get in, and then I don't get into the price I want. But if I do push a price and it goes past it, I'm gonna wait for it to come back down and grab it. If it doesn't come back down and grab it, then I just let it kind of sit there because sometimes you miss a trade. You know what I mean? Um, and all you do is hit your long here. So like this is where we're looking to go long on this particular position here. All right. So now, and then to close, all you do here is once you set your stop loss, see here. So you see how I had a stop loss set? That was the 200% profits and my 25% stop loss, right? If I want to edit it, I just click on that number one, click it, and I can edit what I want. And all I have to do is very simply change the percentages here or the percentages here. Now, once your stop loss becomes positive, Eric, you just want to make sure that you put in the money here, right? So once it becomes positive, you need to manually, because the stop loss only does percentages when it's negative. You understand what I'm saying? So when you go positive, you have to put the price in it yourself. So let's say that if it was positive and it was like 29, say the price is 29.57, I would physically have to go over here and type in the price that I want, which would be 29.55. Let's say I want to take profits here, right? I would put 29.55 and then I would hit confirm, but I'd have to type in that price to get the price I have there. So that way it's like very simple. That's also how you close. So if somebody wanted to close here, um, you'd type in your stop loss there, and then you would go and put it in, right? Very simple. Now, the other thing that you can do, right, is let's say you want to take profits along the way. You hit plus, and this is going to be another stop loss and take profit section, but this one is under partial position, right? This one allows you to actually take profits and stop losses at different positions, right? Which is also taking profit, right? So let's say that right now at 29.56, I want to take 50% of my profits out, right? So I would type in here 29.56, right? You see there? And I would hit 50% and I would basically hit confirm. And the next time this hits 29.56, it would actually close that out for me for that profit side, right? Or if I want to take on the way, because remember my original take profit is set at 200. So let's say that I want to take 50% of my profits at 100, right? And I would just set that there. And then you confirm it. I'm going to turn this to a stop loss instead. I'm going to confirm it. And that's pretty much how you do that. Now you'll see you have TP2, stop loss 2, meaning I have my original stop loss and take profit, but I also have my take profit and stop loss set up with my take profit 50% set up. But you can do 25, 30. You know what I'm saying there? Yeah, so that's pretty much all of um, MEXC as far as using the system there. Other than that, the only other cool thing is let's say that you're in a long or a short and you realize that it's about to reverse and you're like, oh shit, that was a big profit. The easiest thing to do is hit reverse right here. And then this will become a long into a short or a short into a long, and then you start making money on the other way. So this, yeah, you don't have to like, yeah, you don't have to go in and reset everything. Yeah, because you're already, I mean, you're already in the trade, right? So when Solana gets to the point where I get a 3 minute red moon or red trend, I'm not going to close my position. I'm just going to hit reverse, and then I'm going to just basically run the short, right? So it all depends on what trade I'm doing, but I'll just use the reverse for that trade, right? So now on the overall, right now we're just going to run the Solana long, and we're just here. until we get a closing signal, right? And the closing signal is the one thing that I'm always looking for. The basic in the world is that if the volume goes negative on the 3 minute, right? So you see how the volume went negative here? Like to me, that's like a sign that we're getting close to a pullback, which we did. And here we have a red moon, and it did a big pullback there with that RSI coming down. Here we're kind of the same scenario. Here's a red moon. Here's a red moon. The pullback already happened, but see how the orange bounced and now it's starting to push up again. So this is why all our entries and everything that we do is always based on the 3 minute, right? You enter with the 3 minute, green moon, green trend, right? So here we're in the same scenario. So when we go to enter more money or put more money here, so let's say you're watching this position, and you see a red moon is here, and you're like, okay, well, as soon as I get a green moon, then I can put more money in this position and bounce. What I'm looking at are my price action on the lines here, because that's more important to me. And when this orange bounced and started headed up there with the 3 minute, I would have been buying at that level right there, right, which would have been where I was buying at that 29.50. So now I'm riding this little buy. When it hits here, it comes down, I'll buy more, and I'll keep doing it until it breaks out into what it needs to break out. But so far, across the board, we're green. The shorts that I'm looking for, right? So remember the shorts that we're looking for. The original pullback trade, right? So this is why there's only so many trades you have to kind of put in your head, right? The first trade that we need to pay attention to is called the pullback trade, right? And that trade is very simple. It's when the 1 hour reaches the top and it crosses over, which happened here, right? So we'll mark this section here. Crossed over happened here, right? So that is the beginning of the pullback trade, okay? Now, to go with that, I need a 15-minute red moon, right? So for me, the biggest signal for a pullback is this 15-minute red moon. See what I'm saying? Anytime I got a 15-minute red moon, that tells me that I have an opportunity to either, or I should be taking profits at that time to basically buy back in when the 15 minutes done and starts to head back up like it did here. See that? And giving me more, taking those profits and compounding them in positions into bigger positions. But that's the pullback. So the only short that I'm worried about or have to consider that could be against me is always the 15-minute red moon, right? So right now we got a 15-minute red moon that caused that pullback, the 1 hour cross that caused that pullback. And that's kind of like, to me, that's the biggest thing that we worry about. And in conjunction with that, where it becomes where it's actually not a pullback, right? So guys get confused when we talk about pullbacks. Pullback is when a coin is pumping a lot of money out there, and then all of a sudden, there's only so much money that can go in, right? And then the people that are waiting to get into the next trade are waiting for it to, okay, see here, see how the 15 minutes bending down here, see that? Right? And you could say to yourself, like, oh, this might have an endpoint, right? This is where you can come over here and use that quick reverse, right? To get yourself in a position to where if you think that 15 minutes going to pull down or give you more money, and you say, oh, this is going to be a reversal, just hit that reverse button, right? But what we're looking at here is this, right? So a pullback is when the 15-minute red moon hits, right? We're expecting a pullback. All that is a consolidation, right? Meaning that it finds a top, it finds a bottom, right? And then we can trend this out. So this is where it found the top, right? And this is where it found a bottom. Okay. Now a lot of times you hear people talk, if you ever watch YouTube videos, they'll say it's inside of a channel. This is a consolidation channel, right? Meaning that it pushed up to a top, it came down and found a bottom, which is right in here, in this little section here. This is the bottom. That's that first wick, second wick, and then it started to come back up, third wick. And now this is inside of a channel, right? Meaning that it'll hit, it came down, now it's starting to consolidate and breathe. And then all of a sudden it came up, it didn't quite reach the top there. So what we can do is pull it down when that next candle comes, and then it starts its channel back down. And what we're looking for is it getting stronger to the top or is it getting stronger to the bottom? And what we can see is on that first push, it came down and it basically set a standard, right? Meaning this is the top, this is the bottom. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So now on that next push, we can see that it got to here. And now when it comes back down, if it gets back down to this bottom here, then it's getting weaker. You see what I'm saying? Because it's basically it's falling, it's gravitating towards that bottom trend. But what happened was it only got down to here. See? So now we have a middle trend, right? Which would be at the top of like this right here, the bottom of those candles. So now what it's doing is it's basically deciding that it's going to stay on the top side of this trend. Push up. And normally when you have a top and a bottom trend, there's always a 50% middle area, which is basically what this is. So when it came to this section here, you notice that it pushed past it. It settled on the middle trend, right? Meaning that there's still strength here, and that's where we can see the volume is showing us that it's got volume here. So came down, tried to push, even though this was a weak push up. A lot of guys would look at this weak push up and go, "Oh shit, it's about to fall." See what I'm saying? That would be a short right there for a lot of guys. And then it hits this thing, and then boom, look at that. That's a liquidation candle. You see that? That's why we have to wait on our indicators to fully tell us because this is a trap. See this push here, this first drawdown, people are like, oh shit, that's a short. And then they panic and then it bounces. And this comes up and it's a short push. And then people are like, oh shit, it got real weak. And then they go into this short, which would make sense because you would expect it to go from here to here, right? Which overall, if you looked at it, you would say, oh man, going from here to there, that's 3% move right there. You see that? So you can make 300% on that move. The problem is it's a fake out. It pushes up and it's not really a fake out. It's not like they're trying to bait you into that. It's just bad. Bad investors. Okay. So here's a push up top one. It comes back for the pullback, right? This is where a lot of investors buy on the next move, which is this push here. Now, what happened was the guys who didn't take profit here and it pulled back panicked. So on this next push, they started to sell. The problem is that the guys who are buying here seen this pullback and they decided to buy more because they know that they're looking at the overall and realizing that it's actually getting stronger. So it's not right now, it's fighting that these are dumb investors selling at the wrong time, pulling back, and then you get this liquidity drag, which basically takes everyone out. And then it comes back down, and now it's starting to basically, the people who sold here are realizing that, oh, they sold too early, and now they're starting to try to buy back in. So this is retail investors fucking up the trade. But that's what happens. So, but for us on the overall, it's very simple because we're not taking any shorts here. This is why you hear me talk about volume all the time, right? Volume lets me know what's happening. So even though the 15-minute red moon came here and the orange was here, notice how the blue, the sellers are flat, right? Telling me that they're consolidating right now. Right there, consolidating. And then the orange is pushing up to it, right? Now, when the orange pushes up and starts to come down, that lets me know it's going to breathe again and it's going to set another foundation, right? Breathe. Now it's pushing up again, right? And then boom, it comes down, it's breathing. And now we're doing what? Now we're pushing back. And eventually, what's going to happen here is we're going to get a 15-minute green moon, right? That's going to come in here and push up. And the reason why is because the value for us before we can even think that this would be a short position, it has to go below the 4 line right here. It has to go below this, right? And then the real short is when it goes below the negative line. You see what I'm saying? So no matter what here, even though it looks kind of, we're getting in. I'm getting in this trade at a point where it's in the middle of consolidating, so it's going to be a little turbulence here. But at the end of the day, once I make a decision to get in a trade, I can't get out of the trade unless it actually um, has a position to where it tells me it's a short, right? And that's not until there's a 3-minute red moon, red trend. Or the 15-minute red moon has negative volume. Did we have either of that? No. So we can't get out of that trade. What we can do is when we get into a trade and we see these pullbacks, do what I did, put more money. Remember when I was in for when I was in for $40, I was negative 20%, right? So I put $40 more. And then when it dipped down again on me, what did I do? I doubled down on the 100, right? So now what do I have? I have my 20% on my $200. See how that worked? But I'm confident in that because I'm also reading the entire thing. Now, where does this come from? This comes from understanding the very simple trades. There cannot be a short unless there's the 15-minute red moon with negative volume, which I did not have. Okay. And so there's no need to get out of that. Now, if the 1 hour is going down, what I could have done, let's go to the 1 hour, is if I was being a safer trader, right, is I could let that 1 hour come all the way down and then get in, right? Come all the way down and then get in. But what I'm playing is the orange line. See the difference? The orange is telling me that it's still moving. Now, if this blue line, right, crosses over right here, if they started to cross and gave me a red moon here, then I would be in a different scenario. But this orange price action is telling me that the sensitive is changing where people think that it's going to be a short, but the money says it's not going to be a short. That's where, when that's why I wanted to have this. I know we have a little time today, but I wanted to focus, I wanted you to be looking at the right information, right? So you can understand when you're looking at those videos what to be looking at. The price action and the volume is the key. That's why we have the moon indicators, right? The RSI is great, but it's great for sentiment, right? Let you know what's happening, but it also doesn't. So it's like saying the sentiment says, "Hey, man, there's 100 guys that say this sucks," right? But the price action says, well, the 10 guys that say it's great are buying 10 times more. So it doesn't matter if 100 people think it sucks if 10 guys are buying a shitload. The money matters. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so go back, look at your position trade and your day trade, right? We're going to make more videos on that over the week, just really breaking down like trades that we're getting into, right? And then I'm going to get you this will basically, this system here, the buy system, is just going to be where it's very simple, but it'll help you. The buy signal just confirms. But for instance, picking out trades that we want to do, right? So a trade that we want to do is, it always comes down to this, right? It's a 1 hour green moon with positive value, okay? So in reality, where did this trade actually happen, right? So notice right here, when this trade went negative volume, you see down here, when we got a 1 hour green moon and we got positive volume, which broke above the 4 line, see the 4 line right there? Right? This trade happened right here. So this perforated line is the 4 line, okay? And this is just on my settings. I just put it on threshold, and it should be for yours too. It depends on what one you have. But this is the 4 line, right? The trade that we always do, the only trade that we call out is a green moon with positive value, which is basically when you get a green bar, right? Which is right here, okay? That's the green bar right here. So I'm going to mark this right here, and then we're going to go back and look at that price, okay? So this is the trade that we're getting into, right? See, it would be on this bar here, right? That's our trade right there. So in this particular moment, this trade started right here, right? Now it could have been at 23.89, could have been at 23.77, whatever it is, but we'll take that right there. So this current trade right now is the trade that we're in. Okay. Now, this trade does not end until there is a 15-minute red moon negative value. So let me show you how that works, right? So first 15-minute red moon comes. See it right here? Notice we don't have negative value. See? See? Came down, didn't get below the 4 line, bounced up, right? Not negative. So right there, we're watching it. It's a pullback. If anything, when this pullback is happening, if anything, especially with the RSI at the bottom too, right? If anything, we're increasing our position here. See what I'm saying? Now, and that's kind of like the basics of our execution side. We'd be in on this trade somewhere in here. So when this trade comes along, we would just be using that because it came so quickly, right? And a lot of times, remember, when we go to get into a trade, remember your steps, right? The checklist. Here's your checklist. You want the 1 hour, the 30-minute, and the 15-minute RSI all in your favor, okay? So when we got this checklist here, this is that line. Remember, this line right here is the 1 hour positive value. Okay. So to be fair, if we looked at that and we decided to make that trade, we would see right here that the 15-minute RSI is against us, right? So we actually wouldn't have gotten this trade here. We would have let the 15-minute RSI come down, and then we would have got into it when it made a different move here. Now, let me take a look at the 1 hour just to kind of like oversee the entire uh, scenario, because that's kind of how the checklist goes. So at this particular moment here, when this happened, you can see that the 1 hour RSI was at the top there, you see? Now, just because it's at the top doesn't mean it's against us, right? Remember, it has to be going down. And right here, it's not going down. So I would have been like, okay, the 1 hour is not against me. What's the next one? 30-minute. Is the 30-minute against me? It's flat. It's not against me. Is the 15-minute against me, right? And now when I came to the 15-minute, I can see here that the 15-minute was actually at that time coming down, you see? So I would have waited for this to clear, and then my trade would have happened right here when the 15-minute basically came down, or uh, somewhere in this zone here. So it bounces here, and a lot of guys would take that trade there, which is all right. But you got to realize you're gonna have another bounce there, but it's okay to take that trade, right? So when it bounced here, a lot of guys would have got into this trade here, okay? And then it continued to fall on them here, and then finally bounce back up. So that would have been basically buying here, and then when it came down here and reset, you would have bought more of your position here to make up for that dump there, and that would have put you here with more money. See what I'm saying? But either way, you would have been stuck in this position here. So let's go review this real quick. 15-minute moves up. It all looks good right there. You bounce. And this is where this is what I'm talking about, orange, right? So see the price action. Price action comes down. Here's where the price action bounces. See that? That right there is where you would actually be taking your price right here. Right there would be your entry price. So somewhere off of here. Okay. That would be your entry. Orange keeps going. 15-minute finally comes down. And then this little blurb right here is only a 0.44. Now remember, we're running a 30x leverage. So in reality, this is only a 15%, maybe a 20% downward movement. All right, so our stop loss is at 30 anyway, so we would have that wouldn't have bothered us anyways. But that's a good time if that happens to you to turn around and be like buying into that dip, especially when the orange is coming down and starts to head back up. to buy into that dip and then basically increase your position here and start moving. So as that dip started to happen, buying that dip and then basically moving up. So either way, this is the full spot that we would be in. And now the closing of this trade, which is kind of what we're focusing on, is when it's going to get to a 15-minute red moon with negative volume. Right here, we can see the 15-minute RSI is at the top. We get a red moon. Everything is coming down. Yeah, I mean, here, what I like to do is when I see these big spikes that happen, right, something like that, and I see the 15 minutes is all the way at the top, and by now the 1 hour and the 30 minute are headed down during this time, okay? Because remember over here they were flat on the top, so by here I'm pretty sure they're already headed down, right? So when that happens here, and that big spike comes, I would have sold 75% of my position here because I'm planning to rebuy once the 15 minutes starts to head back up, right? Which would be a green moon. So when this 15-minute pushes up here and there's a giant spike, this is what you ever hear me talk about, the last hurrah, right? So this is like a hurrah before a pullback. So when that hurrah hits and I get a 15-minute moon, I'm selling 75% in here and I'm staying sold until I get all the way back to a green moon, which happens here. Now I'm dumping all those profits right back into this position here, right? And now I'm loaded again. Now we're going through the same process. We're pushing up. We get a 15-minute moon, right? And as we're seeing that 15-minute moon hit, notice at this time when that 15-minute moon hits, my orange is starting to push up again, and the 15-minute RSI is at the bottom. So I don't really take this one into any consideration really at this point, because at that point it's a small blip. You see what I'm saying? So I would actually just hold my position here, let it run out. The next one comes, same scenario. The orange is pushing up even though it's a red moon. So I'm still holding my position. I wouldn't care about those. And this entire time, the only time that I get nervous or worried about actually closing this trade would be right here when this volume starts to make its way on this red moon, when that volume starts to come down. And we see here, see how the orange goes to make a 15-minute green moon here? It gets rejected. And you see the 15-minute RSI is at its top, right? You see how it's coming down there? This is another scenario where when I see my orange get rejected here, that would be right in this spot here. That's where I would close this trade in this section here. Because at that point, I'm showing weakness. See what I'm saying? Now, that's where I would close again another 75% of my position. And then when the green moon or the orange line shows uh, power again, which happens here. See how the orange comes down, starts to head up right there? 15-minute, I would rebuy 75% of my position here. I'd be rebuying in this position here, 75%. And then the next time that we're looking to, get out of our way happens in this little spot here. We get another red moon, RSI is tall, and we can see here we're starting to head towards the blue and the orange are coming down. Notice here on this big dip here, the blue and the orange are both heading down. See what I'm saying? So this here would scare me enough to where I would basically pull out of this trade again, another 75% when that orange starts to head down. And I would sit out until I got the orange basically starting to push back up, which is right here. You see how the orange starts to make its move back up here? Right. Now I'm putting in probably about half of the profits that I took out because I don't have a green moon yet, and I'm riding the orange. It comes down again. This is where it starts to move up again, and this is where I would put the other 50% of the profits back in right here when we get to this green moon area. Boom. And now I'm back in this trade, and I'm just rocking this trade out this entire time. So there's a couple times there that you really want to take profits on your section. But the key to this is we're not closing this trade yet because at the end of the day, there's not a full close here, right? And a full close at the end of the day is going to be when we get to the point where there's um, a significant change in direction, right? which comes down to what? Comes down to our 1 hour. Remember, the only time that we actually get out of a long trade is when the 1 hour volume is below the 4 line. You see what I'm saying? So currently this trade is still a long in our position trade. All right. The only time that we get out of it is if we hit a red moon, which we did here. But the volume, notice here the RSIs were at the bottom, but the volume was high. The volume broke down here, which is where we would took 75% profits anyways, based on the 15-minute. So right in this point here. Yeah, once the 1 hour volume gets below the negative line right here. All right, so we got red moons here, but notice how even though you have a red moon, notice that the blue line is still sideways, right? And the orange, yeah, yeah. The only way we'd close this is if the blue line started to join the orange line down right here. See what I'm saying? Then we'd be looking to consider a close, right? That basically resets it, breathes. There's another push. Here we go again. Once again, the orange is coming down, but the blue is sideways. And then right here is where you see the blue join the orange, right? So this would be the only spot right here when they both basically came down on that one side there that we would be looking concerned about right here would be the only time that we'd be concerned about getting out of a position there, right? That's where we would, yeah. So you can use if you want to use where stay. I like the higher time frames, right? It's good for guys to practice on the 15-minute getting in and out because it's practice, right? Gives you more times to take 75% profit. Yeah. And for me, as you get that down, or maybe doing it the other way is better. Maybe just doing it when there's a 1 hour red moon and the blue and the orange are both heading down, maybe that's when you take 75% profit, right? So for instance, here, the blue starts to bend down right here. You see that? And the orange is coming down. Maybe a guy takes 75% profit there and he holds off all the way until he gets another position where the orange starts to head back up or the blue gets flat again. So you hear how the blue got flat and the orange is heading towards it. Then he rebuys when he sees the orange and the 1 hour RSI coming up. Maybe it's better to buy in right there and avoid dealing with, these little things. And now you're back in that position. But we're going to hold this position until the volume on the 1 hour actually breaks below the 4 line. Right? That's when the only time to really close this trade is when you have that happening, right? And so if we would have got out of this trade here on the 1 hour and we were sitting back, we're not looking for a short yet because what is a short? A short is going to be when the 15-minute has negative value, right? So notice here, we would have been out of this trade here just for safety. 75% of our trade would have been gone here because the blue is with the orange. And then once the blue settled sideways and came down again, and then all of a sudden flat, and then finally the orange starts to head towards it, we would be rebuying our position. And currently, we would stay in this long because notice here that we don't even have a red moon yet. So we don't even have to worry about getting into a short yet because we're not even in a red moon on the 1 hour. Okay. That's kind of like the checklist, right? When there's a 1 hour red moon and the blue and the orange line are going down together, you're closing 75% of your position. You are re-entering when the blue line goes flat and the orange line starts to head back up with the 1 hour RSI heading towards the blue to cross over for another green moon. Now, that's the basic move there, right? So when the 1 hour red moon has a blue and orange line heading down, buyers and sellers go both in the same direction, you're closing out of your position 75% of your profits and you're waiting until it comes back around and it resets itself to where it actually orange starts to head back towards the blue and the blue's flat re-entering, and that's the basics of how to get in and out of position using profits to gain more money. Now, the only time that we're actually would close this position, right, is if we looked over Yeah, the 1 hour has to have negative volume, but the key to this is going to be this. The kind of like the prelude is going to be this. When the 15-minute volume breaks the 4 negative line, like you see here, you see how it came down here, the 4 negative line, and it bounced, right? And it started headed back up. So for us, we're not even considering a short or a reversal of a short here until this volume on the 15-minute actually gets below this 4.5 line, right? That's kind of like the key for me to like think about any type of negative volume. I need, or at least the 30-minute needs to be below the 4.5 line on the positive side. You see what I'm saying? So if those two things aren't happening, I'm not even considering a short or a different direction on this trade until that all happens. So right now, this is still a long to me, and these positions are uh, just going to be held until that happens, you know. So that's what I want. So yeah, the 15 is like, so think about trades, right? So for instance, this is what I mean by like understanding certain trades, right? So we know that a short trade is a red moon with all the RSIs top, right? It's a pullback, right? Doesn't mean it's a short, it means it's a pullback. Now, the trade that we're looking to do, right, that we consider to be a trade is when the 4 hour RSI crosses down, right? So if you look here, we go to our 4 hour, right? That's where we would be saying to ourselves, okay, this is the beginning of a B trade, right? It's when the 4 hour actually crosses over. And then from there, you're starting to consider that there's going to be a short trade, right? But that's when the 4 hour crosses, right? So you can see here, it's starting to touch. So it looks like Solana is getting ready to, start reversing here, but we haven't got that trade yet. So in the next an hour or something, we can start looking for Solana to change its direction here once it crosses. But then again, that starts a B trade, but what's the rest of the B trade? The rest of the B trade is also when the 3 hours headed down, the 2 hours headed down. But notice here, the 2 hour isn't headed down. See that? So the B trade hasn't even happened yet. So we're still in that little last pump there, the last hoorah, right? So we don't need to close this until we get to the point where the hurrah changes, right? So for me, I'm not going to be closing this until this 2 hour starts to cross over and give me a red moon here. But my insight to that is going to be the 1 hour red moon, right? See what I'm saying? So once again, it takes me back to the same thing is that I can't really fully close this long until there's an actual short, right? And what short is there? Well, the actual short for me is going to be a 4 hour crossing, two 2 hour, 1 hour RSI headed down, right? So until that happens, this is a long position trade until all that happens, you know. So right now we're just starting to see the tops. Now what I will be doing, just like how we watched over here, remember we're in this channel, right? In this channel, we can see that we're touching the top, we're touching a bottom. We're touching a top, we touch the bottom. But notice here, we're starting to move our way up. So we want to go to our 15-minute, right? Because the 15-minute is going to give us a better insight of what we got. Now, if this starts to be where I get a push, a bounce, a push, a bounce, a push, but notice here, I haven't broke through here yet. You see what I'm saying? So far, the 30, this has kind of been my top area here, right? So this little line here about 30.06, that might be the end of this push. That might be the end of this push. Because notice here on the 15-minute, we didn't get our green moon. Yeah, we didn't get our green moon here. You see that? And we're pushing. So the only thing I would look at here is like, okay, the 2 hours headed up. When is the 1 hour going to give me support here, right? So eventually, once this 1 hour finishes its last move, if this orange starts to come down, I'll be considering that this is probably the end of this hoorah, and we need to be looking to change our position here. You know what I mean? But that's how you start to see weakness. Right now, we're starting to see it right here. So this looks like the last hoorah came back, hoorah, and this is kind of where it's starting to settle itself. But we still have the 2 hour is still pushing up, so that still means there's a hurrah left. The 30-minute is still pushing up, so there's still a hurrah left, right? So all we need here is to get this 15-minute moon to hit. And after that 15-minute moon hits, that's probably going to be where I look at this and go, okay, this is probably the end of this move here, right? Another thing for me is, like always, watching the 3-minute. So I'm not going to be concerned until my 3-minute red moon has a red trend. Then I would be considering that this is probably going to be, coming towards its little end piece. And I'll start focusing on reversing this into a short position, right? Now, like I was showing you earlier, the cool thing about, um, next C is that, yeah, I can sit here and go, you know what, this looks kind of hairy. I hit a quick reverse move, and then boom, that takes my profit and puts my 200 bucks into a short position while putting the profits on the side. Pretty cool, right? So now I'm comfortable like making that reverse right there because I mean, like I said, we're coming to the last hoorah here. If I was really watching this trade earlier when I got those pumps, like these pumps that hit right here, I would have reversed at this 30.04 or some shit, and I'd be up 20% already. See what I'm saying? But for me, it comes down to everything lining up, and we have a red moon. We're looking for a red trend here. We don't quite have it yet, but on the overall, when I'm looking here, I'm starting to see where Solana, is showing it's a little bit of a weakness, but it still has a 1 hour coming down and needs to bounce. But the biggest thing here is that it's volume, right? And the 1 hour volume is not giving up here, right? It's not getting weaker, right? So that's kind of what, that's why on the other side, I'm not really thinking about any type of the short plays because and see how easy you can reverse, make a mistake, like boom, reverse, pretty cool. But for me, I got to hold that position on the long side until there's actually like a complete short, right? So to even think about a short, what's the basics, right? To enter a short, what do we need minimum? Yeah, and we need at least a 3-minute red moon red trend. So for me, I'm looking here going, I don't even have a 3-minute red moon red trend. So I can't even choose a short right now or try to get into a short right now because I don't even have the basic. See what I'm saying? That's the key to that, right? So when you kind of put when you say is there a checklist? Yeah, the checklist is I can't think about a reverse until there's a red moon and red trend on the 3-minute, right? And I can't think about a short until the 15-minute volume is below 4.5, or we have negative volume on the 30-minute. So until any of that happens, I can't even consider a short. So on the overall, I just got to hold my position here until it pans out. Now, what I can do is I can start to realize that this thing has been getting weak over the time period. So but it is consolidating, right? This is where people get caught up where they're overthinking it, right? Sometimes consolidation's consolidation. You just got to stay in your position. We have a long position here. We're going to hold our long position until, it actually becomes a red moon, red trend. So that's why a lot of times when guys are making trades or they're getting in or out of a trade and they get out too early, it's like, well, I mean, you can get out too early if there's a pump. But at the end of the day, if there's no pump, well, then why are you getting out if there's no spike, right? If you don't have a 3-minute red moon, red trend, why are you getting out, right? So that's kind of like knowing the basic trades. So when you know the trade that you want to get into on a long and a trade that you want to get into on a short, then from there, you can just kind of trade against that same shit, right? So for me, it's the same thing. I need a 1 hour red moon to consider any type of short, right? That's pretty much it. So for me to give up my position trade, at the end of the day, I need at least a 30-minute red moon to let me know there's something going on with negative volume. So I have my red moon. We're getting these pushes here. Yeah, and this is where I'm looking at the orange. Notice how here it came up, there was a pullback, then there was a pump. See there? Pullback, pump, right? So you start to see your red moon, the RSI comes down, there's a pump, it comes down. Now we go to a pump and it looks like it wants to come down again here or and consolidate, and maybe that's finally going to bring to where it has its last push, right? 15-minute, I take a look at my 15-minute, same thing, right? Red moon comes down, push, red moon, here's the push, here's the 15-minute money starting to come down again. We're getting to the top of the RSI again, right? Which means that we're probably going to get a nice, pullback here, right? And this is where you can start protecting your profit. So you see here, your RSI is getting towards the top. Profit wise, you take a look here, this is where you can start selecting your positions or your profit sizes, deciding where you're at. But we just can't make any real moves here until we get the volume where we want it, right? And we just don't have that. And the minimum that you can look at is the negative volume on the 3-minute, right? There can't be a short unless the volume is negative on 3-minute, right? Or below the zero line. And right here, we don't have that yet. See there? So that to me is like the basics of like, all right, I can't get to the other side because I don't have negative volume on that 3-minute, right? So I'm not even close on the 15-minute. So at the end of the day, we're going to have to hang on here until there's a definite reversal here, which is going to be a 3-minute red moon, 3-minute red trend. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of ways you can, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. So you're talking about which ones? You talking about here? These? You talking about these or up here? Oh, you talking about up here? Yeah, yeah. So these are your EMAs, right? So this will be a little bit different, but I'll show you what this is. So what these are going to be your. So obviously this is our 200, right? And I'll show you right here. Yeah. So the way I have it set up here, inputs. So we're running the 20, the 50, and the 200. Blue is 20, yellow is right. So this is the 20, the 50, and the 2. Mhm. Yeah. So for me, so this is kind of a little bit of a different system, but for me, I don't consider shorts. You see, these are great for like target bouncing, right? So here's a 20 here. So a lot of times, if you're definitely above the 20, then you're definitely still positive, right? You're still in a bullish move, right? So for me, the 20, I don't really look at it that much. That's just the last just the last thing that kind of like there's different ways to trade EMAs, right? So that's a different type of style. Right. So for me, I'm always looking at targets of what they're hitting, right? So when we get to the point where it actually becomes um, a scenario where we're headed downward, right? Then I would be looking to touch the 200, the 20, or the 50. You know what I mean? Kind of like targets for future moves, right? So for instance, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's the 200 here. Yeah, we're positive here for sure. And another thing that I like to use them for is kind of like if you watch them, right? They're like volume indicators, right? So what I'm looking for is are they going flat, right? So for instance, you see how the 20 is? The 20 is still pointing up, you see? So for me, because the 20 is still pointing up, right? That's letting me know that we're still in an upward move. right? When it starts to slow down and starts to go flat, you see how it goes flat? That means we're going to see some pullback. So right now, we're still in an upward trajectory. But I don't really use them too much except for just um, confirmation of, a little bit extra. Now, if we do break below the 50, yeah, if you break below the 50, then you can look for a target to the 200, right? So when everything lines up for a short, eventually when we get to the short position, then I'll be using the 200 and the 50 for targets. But right now, the only thing I use them for here is just confirmation on the 20 is like the confirmation for the volume. But at the end of the day, that's what we have on these orange and blue ones anyways. Yeah, that's what I use. Hikinashi. Yeah, that's the only ones I use. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm always, yeah, yep. I use them all. So, I, yeah, yeah. I mean, the regular candles are going to be a little more sensitive, but I just like, for me, I'm not getting in and out of my trade until like I have a reversal trade, right? So the trade for me, this is going to be until the 1 hour has a red moon and the volume on the 15 has to be negative. Yeah, so at this point, I can't, the first thing that can the first thing that happens is I need a red moon, red trend on the 3 minute. So I can't even consider any of those other reverses until there's a 3 minute red moon, red trend. Once that happens, then I can look at, there's pullbacks. Now, don't get me wrong, there's pullbacks. 15-minute red moon is a pullback, right? So once we look at the 15-minute red moon, I can look for pullbacks where I can take profits and then protect my profits, which happened here, right? See the RSI, protect my profits. The second part is we got a bounce here. I can protect my profits again right here if I wanted to, which would be basically respecting this next 15-minute RSI pull down, right? When this finally gets to the point where it wants to come back down here, right? If it does, RSI crosses over and starts to head down, then I'd consider, taking profits there, 75% of my profits, and then dumping them back in when it reverses, right? So that's something that, we can look at. But at the end of the day, I don't worry about the 15-minute red moon unless the 3 minute volume is negative, right? And that's when it breaks below the zero line there. So far, we're looking good. And you can see here that we're starting to see weakness, right? Notice here, as we've started to go over this time period, the Solana has been failing to get anything higher than what it's had. You see what I'm saying? So every time there's a push on the 15-minute, Solana's failing to make a push, right? So that's where you can, if you were playing reversals, you can slide into there, jump into a reversal like that, and you can say, okay, I'm going to play these 15-minute, right? And what you're doing here is, there's a short coming, right? Because you see the weakness. Okay, we've seen the weakness here. Remember, here's the push, push, push. Every push is failing to break above 30,066. Here's the pullback. Here's the next push. Notice this one failed to break below 30. See what I'm saying? So now here, what I'm going to be doing is playing the 15-minute. Notice the 3 minutes starting to bend. I do have a 3 minute red moon, which entitles me to say, okay, let me play this 15-minute red moon because now they're starting to make sense. See how my 15 minutes starting to bend down on the money? So now I'm playing the 15-minute RSI. I'm gonna let that 15-minute come down, reset, and then when that 15-minute resets and starts to go back up, then I'll reverse back to a long, right? But right now I don't have any reason to go long right here because I don't have a green moon on the 15-minute yet. You see what I'm saying? So this is where you can start playing the early short entry because we do have a 3 minute red moon and we have a 3 minute, a 15-minute red moon. See what I'm saying? Which means at this point, it's in a stalemate. Yeah, it's in a stalemate, right? It's basically consolidating. but it also pumped very hard the last couple times. So we're at that moment where you can basically say, hey, around this area, I'm probably going to get a short in here somewhere, but it still hasn't been confirmed. And I think a lot of times, I think the guys, what they do here is they're jumping this short here, right? Because they're thinking just like that, right? And to me, volume is the king of this move, right? This is where, yeah, we still have too much volume here, right? Now, is there going to be a short in this area? Probably going to be a short in this area, but we have no idea how much it's going to bounce, right? So for me, when guys start reversing like that and taking that early short position, it really comes down to this for me, right? Until this 3 minute goes below this negative here, right? Then I can't really consider buying into the fact that this is ready for a short. You know what I mean? But there are signs here, right? Remember, there's signs here. There's a rejection, and a third rejection. Normally, three rejections, you're in a good spot to start thinking the other direction. You know what I mean? That's the only reason for me taking hitting that reverse button is because I've got three rejections, and this last push didn't really do much. Plus my 15 minute, right? Because now I'm playing the 15 minute. My 15-minute orange is heading down. You see? Yeah, yeah, still green volume. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually playing the price action volume. You see how the 30 minutes bending down here? So I'm in a good spot here going, you know what? This might be the beginning of the reversal, right? We're starting to bend. We failed to break past 30 cents three times already. Everything seems a lot weaker, right? So my 30 minute is starting to come down. My 1 hour is already pushing. And remember, once the 1 hour gets down below the 50 line down in here, that's where it gets stronger, right? So like filling a balloon up. Now this balloon is actually a lot more heavier. Now the drag is going to be more. I don't have my 1 hour starting to head down here on my orange, right? Now, if that starts to bend, then I know I'm in a very good position here, right? But so far, I got my 15, and I'm playing the 15-minute move here, right? That's kind of what I'm looking for, and we already know that on our bigger time frame, the trade that we're waiting for is the B trade, which is when the 4 hour crosses over, which it looks like it's about to do. So we're starting, and this is why we can start looking for the reversals because we're almost at a B trade. Like we're starting to get towards a B trade here. But you still have volume here that's pushing up. The 15 minute hasn't crossed over yet, right? So this could go either direction here. And this is where you have to have in your decision, right? And I think this is kind of where it looks good on both sides, right? And this is the hardest time for people to make a decision, right? Because it looks like a good beginning of a short, and it also looks like it could continue on for one last pump for a long, right? Both guys are right. That's the problem. That's the problem. Yeah, you gotta pick your definite decision makers, right? And, and yeah. So that's kind of where that comes down to. And for that, that is going to be the 3 minute volume, right? When that 3 minute volume finally goes negative here, and we start to see that, then you're looking at where you can start getting into short. Because remember, the trades that we're making are like long period trades. They're not like we're not scalping right here, right? We're looking for something that's going to, run for, a couple hours, right? So we need a definite decision. Alert, I'm fired. We need a definite decision here that there's going to be some type of reversal, right? And that still comes down to 3 minute red moon, 3 minute red trend. So right here, there we go. There's a two. Now we installed the 2 minute red trend here to give us a heads up. But now that we got that red trend, right? Now we can look at this and go, okay, finally, this price level right here, 29.77. Now we got a 2 minute red trend. So now the snowball, yeah, now the snowball is starting to say, hey man, we're starting to see, a little bit of a weakness finally coming up, right? So now we can say to ourselves, like, all right, this could be the end of this long here. Like there'll be a little bit of hurrah pushes, but now we finally saw a 2 minute red trend, right? Which normally is going to get, yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's a flash, right? That's why when it flashes, it just lets you know that it's coming around, right? But we're still in the same predicament. We still have a 3 minute red moon, 3 minute, green trend. So right now we're still looking at the long side position. That's why I said when a lot of guys they jump. Mhm. You're good. You're good. Yeah. No, no, I don't do like looking for a Doge candle or something like that. Yeah. No, no, I don't worry about the candles. I was talking about like looking for hammer candles or Doge candles. Yeah, yeah. I don't worry about those. To me, like the long position that we were playing, it just holds until there's a 3 minute red moon red trend. But you can see where guys make the decision to try to jump this trade right now, and that's what I'm trying to show you. Is like here, look. So here, jumping that trade, see how we're 6%. Now we're 6% down, jumping the trade, right? And this is where you get into a spot where you're like, damn, maybe this is going to go long again. And this is where you have to kind of say to yourself, all right, I'm making a decision. So now you have to wait for the other things that make decisions, right? So when you have a checklist or you have a trade that's, your trade, you have to just stick to that trade, right? So for us, like I said, the only way we could actually reverse this trade is we need a 3 minute red moon red trend, right? And that's where guys they start to see things and they jump and they get caught in the middle of the consolidation, right? The other thing is that I need volume to be negative below the negative line for me to even consider the other position, right? And this is how quickly, I mean, 8% is $20, right? And then guys will go, man, I'm losing so much money. Yeah, you're losing a lot of money because you're jumping trades. Yeah, you have to make a decision. Oh, so your 2 o'clock your time work? Yeah, 1 o'clock mine, 2 o'clock yours. Yeah, but I just wanted to like, yeah. So for you, I just want to cover the basics, right? Like, it's like finding once you're in a position trade. The whole point of position trades is that you just hold your position until the trade finishes, right? And tomorrow we're going to go over more of the higher that's 15 minute and so forth. But this is how much a trade can look like it's doing something else and then go against you. The bottom line is I can't theoretically, I'm not going to, if I'm in this trade and I'm not kind of going through the scenarios with you, I'm not going on a short on this trade until there's a 3 minute red moon red trend. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, yeah. So it doesn't matter if it's going down and it looks terrible. I don't panic. I hold until the 3 minute red moon red trend, right? And if you do that consistent. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's going right. But the problem is that if you're consistent with that, right? So like that's how easy we were going back and forth. You can lose 10, $20, like literally going back and forth, 10, 20, 10, 20. And then you start seeing the different like price, you're like, oh my God, now I'm the other way, right? And now you're making emotional decisions on these trades instead of like just letting the trade finish. So the one thing I want to do when we're starting off here is that I realize when, guys start the trade, they're always like asking, well, when do I get out of that trade? And it's like, well, the 3 minute red moon red trend, right? So now when we're starting over looking at all the indicators, the one thing I want to constantly drive home is that once we make a trade, we have to hold that trade until there's the reversal, which is a 3 minute moon red trend. Until then, you just can't make that decision. You can't get out the trade because it moves up and down all the time. And guys have to start getting away from the emotional decision. That's why we're doing the one-on-ones. The one-on-ones are more about, yeah, it's about teaching guys to stop being emotional. You know what I'm saying? 10, 20, 20, 20 minutes up. All right, brother. We'll see you tomorrow. I'll chat later, man. You're welcome, bro.